Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Episode 2 of Overthinking Baseball Cards. I'm back here with my man, Iowa Dave Sports Cards. And yeah, we're ready for our second episode. Very excited. Thank you to everybody that watched and subscribed and sent us nice messages and comments and shares and all that the first time. I think Dave and I really appreciate that. We got a really fun topic today, a really robust topic. So I'm just, So again, thanks to everybody. I'm going to kick it over to Dave, who's going to start us off with the leadoff, and we'll take it from there.
Jason, it's awesome to see you. Always love talking baseball cards. It's like my favorite day of the month. So this being episode 2, just a reminder that one of us brings a question to the beginning to get us going before we get to the main subject, that the other one does not know what the question is. So Jason asked the first episode. This time, I've got the question. So Jason, my question for you comes from something that I've been thinking about, which is, how would collecting be different if we had no access to pop counts? So we knew what prices were, we had all that, but in terms of how many were graded, SGC, PSA, whatever, pick your grading company, we did not know how many were out there. Would that be different? And how would it be different? And while you think about it a little bit and percolate, I was thinking about it is that I think it could do two things. One is I think it might, one is it would make us less inhibited to buy base cards, because we wouldn't know. Like, maybe I love the 89 Ken Griffey Jr., and that's the one I want. I don't know that there's 10 million graded. Instead, I just want one. That being said, if we don't know how many there are, I think potentially that pushes the price up as well, because then no one could then say, well, there's 5 million of these. Why, I'll just wait and get one that I want. Instead, we don't know. And that would cause, I think, prices, at least for the prolific cards, to go up. I would personally would love it. I would like because I know sometimes I will restrain myself from buying a card because it's too common. But if I didn't know if it was common, I would just appreciate the card. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, similar to your sort of first initial thoughts, like the prices could probably be a little bit more wonky. Like if there is sort of that mysterious element of maybe there's a lot more than we know or a lot less. I'm glad you brought that question today, actually, because this last week I've probably looked at pop counts, especially on vintage cards, more than I ever have in my life. And it was really interesting. And it definitely does influence me quite a bit. I specifically looked at the PSA pop counts, and I know obviously a lot of vintages and SGC holders and whatnot, but on the iconic cards, I know I would be more inclined to buy some. Like just off the top of my head, I would like even basketball, which I don't really collect that much, but like some of the junk wax Jordan cards, the 87 Fleer, the 88 Fleer, that type of stuff. The 89 Griffey's a great example. That's a card I would like to own. But the urgency level is just not there because of the pop count, because I know how many there are. With limited money, you have to have sort of an order of operations of like, okay, if I want these 10 cards and this one's the most available, I can probably put that one at the end of the line and target these other items that are more scarce and less likely to be found in the future for the same price and that type of thing. So there's that side of it. And then in terms of like actually being somebody that grades and tries to hit high grades on stuff, like I would be a little bit sad about that. Like I'm thinking about my Grease 1978 Topps Grease build, and that's a set that has very low pop counts on all the cards, just because it's not, something that a lot of people are dealing with or grading or whatnot. So it's fun for me to like chase that condition rarity and really try to be the person that's like filling out those pop counts, especially in the high grades, the 9s and that type of thing. With the research component, I think it would be a lot different and actually a lot less fun. Like I had a blast digging into like some of these iconic cards and their pop counts, especially like in lower grades, some of the 70s and 80s stuff in higher grades. So I wouldn't like that. So there's parts I would like and parts I wouldn't like. I would like the sort of mystery of just sort of the purity of just like, I like this card, I'll go buy this card. That would be cool. I would not like sort of the the less strategic components, because I'm really in the hobby. A lot of the reason I enjoy this stuff so much is the strategy. So the kind of bobbing and weaving around the different pop counts and trying to see how I can find angles and that sort of thing. So that's kind of where I'd be at with it.
Yeah, that makes sense too. It does kind of make it fun a little bit. I hadn't really thought about it the way of the strategy and knowing that your card is rare and knowing that not many people have it. I think that's part of the allure of some cards. And I think I would be lying if I said I want everyone to have every card, because I like having sometimes I like having something that other people don't have. Right. And I think the reason I was thinking about it is because on the flip side of that, I do get frustrated with myself. And we talked about this, I think, on the last episode, with why I will not buy a card because it's too prevalent, because it's everywhere. And when that happens, then I'm like, boy, am I being shallow? Am I being ridiculous? And I think the card we used as an example last episode was the 2018 Heritage Shohei rookie, which to me is his best by far rookie image. Like it's a wonderful portrait. You see him, you can almost imagine how that happened and how the picture went down. But if you put a black border on it, if you put a shine on it, all of a sudden it costs a lot more, because now you have the number on the back. And am I buying the number on the back? Am I buying the fun little shine? Or am I going to buy the image that I think is great? And a lot of times I will buy the number on the back or wherever they're putting the number. And so I guess I'm kind of torn between it. I can go either way with it, right? It probably makes sense the way it is. It's hard to imagine going back to a world where we don't know what the pop count is. It's almost hard to even fathom. But I think it's more a Dave problem than it is a hobby problem.
No, I agree. I have those same issues, and I think about that stuff a lot. Like, because there's so many variables, especially with modern, when you bring in the serial numbering of it, it's like, and we're gonna. This is again the perfect conversation for today's episode, because I think we're going to hit this from a lot of angles. But I was just dealing with this the other day, and I'll talk more about this with one of my cards, but it's a card I wanted more than basically any other card. I love the image, I love the year, I love what it represents, I love the player, but I couldn't find a parallel that I was super comfortable with of that card. Um, and I kept thinking, I'm like, and this is what's annoying about modern is I can't just buy the card, and because why would I? Why would I spend $25 on a Shohei Ohtani base PSA 10, PSA 9, whatever? Like it doesn't mean anything to me because of the prevalence of manufactured scarcity, and that's sad in a way. Like, and it pushes me towards other things that do have meaning, just for the simple thing that they are. Here's a 78 base Travolta, this is a $2 card, but it's meaningful because it's the only one there is. I mean, there's lots of copies of it in different condition and whatnot. But I love this just for this. The 2021 Topps Ohtani, which is a card I'm going to talk about today. I love that card, but I only love maybe 300 copies of it, that exists. So it's very confusing. It does make you feel shallow. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. This is a hobby where we can come and sort of just, be, whatever, and just kind of lean into some of that stuff. So I don't think it's a Dave problem. I think it's definitely an all of us problem. And it's a fun problem though. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the kind of stuff that we think about here on Overthinking Baseball Cards. And I think a lot of people relate to that.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm really excited to get to the main part of the show today. And you brought up a little bit about what we're going to be doing. But maybe why don't you explain to those who are viewing the kind of teams we'll each be putting together today and the exercise that we are going to be pulling off here.
Yeah, really fired up for this. This was a blast to prepare for. Probably one of the most, fun sort of exercises I've done recently. So we're going to make a team or a draft of sorts. And I think Dave and I each approach this a little bit differently, which is good in and of itself. We're going to look at the different eras So we're going to talk about the dead ball era. We're going to talk about pre-war cards. We're going to talk about the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and then we're going to kind of combine the 2010s and the 2020s. So what we're going to do is each select players from each of these eras. We'll go back and forth. I don't know, Dave, do you want to just do it chronologically, or do you want to do it like in priority of
Nah, I'd say the fewer rules, the better.
Okay, just however.
Let's just do it however we want. Whatever list
Okay.
you have, how you have yours written down. However, I have mine written down. The important thing is that we each picked one person from each of these eras, so it'll follow this chart. And if you're watching this on your phone, sorry, it might be a little bit small. If you're watching this on your on a TV or a larger flat screen, this will make a little bit more sense to you. But you can see here how this is arranged, the spots that we'll be picking. Dead ball through the modern era plus 3 wild card or 3 bench type spots. And then also got card ladder locked and loaded. So hopefully we can show you the card as well, so you have an idea of what we're talking about. I picked a couple of obscure ones that I think are kind of fun and of the era. And I'm excited to get going here.
Yeah. And then just one sort of big picture overview I want to give, and then I'll let Dave give his before he makes his first selection. What I was really trying to do here was I wanted to build a collection that I would actually build. So the cards that I've drafted here are all cards that I would buy and that I would like to buy in the next few years. I'm going to try to highlight the price too, because I think that's a very important component that people don't talk about enough in terms of like a card you really like can be very unlikable once it reaches a certain price. So I do want to note that. And then also, I think I approached this maybe slightly different than Dave in that I did pick the same player in a couple instances, and I picked the same position in a couple instances, but it's all good. It's still going to be the same sort of, robust conversation around cards. So for the sake of time, I'll just get started, Dave, and tell you my first select. And the order I'm going to do this is the order of urgency. So like what order I think I would buy these cards in. So the first one is my 2020s selection, or 2010s and 2020s. There's no reason to beat around the bush here. This is going to be a Shohei Ohtani card, and I did select specifically his 2021 Topps card in the best version that I could possibly find. So while Dave's plugging that into Card Ladder, I'll just say the reason for this was I think about 2021 Ohtani as his sort of true breakout. Obviously drafted in 2018, had big moments before then, but his first MVP season was in 2021. He had 5 WAR as a hitter, 3 WAR as a pitcher, 3.18 ERA, won the MVP award, just full operational two-way Ohtani in 2021. 2022, he followed it up with probably his best season as a pitcher with a 5.6 WAR and a 2.53 ERA. Dave has the 2021 image pulled up there. I just think it's a beautiful, basic, simple, just nice, clean card. I used to have this in a gold wave. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know I posted a poll yesterday and I asked people, I was like, would you rather have a gold wave out of 50 or a Mother's Day out of 50? And that was top of mind for me because I just bought this card in the Mother's Day, the pink out of 50. And right now, that's the best version of this card that I'm able to get my hands on. There's a few gold waves out there. They're priced very high. I paid $150, I think, for the Mother's Day. I had previously had a gold wave that I sold for probably $250, something like that. But really, I want this card, and you're going to see my list goes here. My selections, and I didn't necessarily plan it to be this way, but they're more emblematic of eras, of big moments for players, big seasons for players when they were sort of in their prime. And to me, 2021 was the true beginning of the Ohtani era as a dominant force. The Ohtani and Judge years, obviously Judge would follow up with the home run record the following year, and Ohtani would win his third MVP the following season. But to me, this card represents that era. My favorite player of modern, my favorite era of cards right now, of the current baseball stars and that type of thing. So that's my first selection, Dave.
Very good. I like how you did it. I like that you included prices. I did not include prices? Because with me, money is no object. No, I didn't do it that way.
That's totally fine.
The way I did it though is I approached it from like a rotisserie point of view. Like
Okay.
Used to play a game called Micro League Baseball. I used to love it. It was sort of like a precursor to fantasy baseball. And so for the 9 categories, I have one for each of the 9 eras, but then I have it by position. So I have one pitcher, first baseman, a catcher, second, third, short, and the 3 outfield positions, and then the 3 benches. And the 3 benches are wild cards. They come from anywhere.
Okay.
But
no, that's good. That'll give us a good variety. So
yeah, and so I purposely picked out a card, intentionally one player, one position, one per era. And so the first card that I went with was the 1912 T202 Walter Johnson as my starting pitcher. So far ahead of his time in terms of the force that he threw with. And hopefully I got it pulled up the right way here.
Nice.
Yep.
This is exciting because I have no idea what cards Dave is going to pick, and I'm really excited to see.
Yep. And I don't know yours either, Jason. So
that's a beauty.
Here's the one, and it comes with different backs. I don't really care which back it has, right? But love the colors. Well, sometimes I look at this set I'm sort of just stunned that something that vibrant, is 110 plus years old. I don't know why it would be. Like, why wouldn't they have had color back then in printing presses? And it was post-industrial revolution, so why wouldn't they have it, right? But I didn't want to go T206. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go Cracker Jack. I just wanted to go. I love this set. At one point, I considered buying a couple of players out of here, and then realized I didn't really want to actually enter into pre-war, especially tobacco era, candy era, just because I don't know. It just seems like it'd be really expensive. But for the sake of this exercise, it was a lot of fun. And so that's the one that I decided to go with. Really glad that I did. And so I'm going to put that into my dead ball era pitcher here, which is the 1912-ish T2 Walter Johnson.
That's a beauty. I'm actually not familiar with that set. I've seen them in auctions, and but I've never really dug into it and looked at those. But those are beautiful cards, and I do like the color quite a bit on those relative to the T2. And it sounds like maybe they're a bit more affordable than the Cracker Jack options and that type of thing.
Yeah, the Cracker Jacks are, especially the 1914s, are out of control. I'm not even sure if he has one. I'm not even that educated about that era.
I'm not either, but those are, that's.
I do know I like that set a lot. It's just fantastic.
Yeah. So what's your next one? Okay. Next pick I'll go with. So I actually, I'll just do my dead ball pick too. So I also took a dead ball pitcher, and I took the T206 Addy Joss, not the portrait. So I think it's probably titled like pitching. If you type that in, T206 Addy Joss pitching or throwing. Like Dave, I don't care about the back. I used to own this card actually. And Addy Joss is a player that's really interesting. There you go. So I first learned about him in the Ken Burns baseball doc. I'm not a baseball historian by any stretch of the imagination, especially this era, but I find it really fascinating and really just sort of awe-inspiring and just so, like Americana, all that kind of stuff. Addy Joss passed away at a very young age. I think he was in his early 30s. In 1904, he had a 1.59 ERA, 1908, 1.16 ERA, 27 wins in 1907, league leaders in all those respective categories for those seasons. But one of the most interesting things is the first All-Star game was a benefit for his family. You had all these big names, Ty Cobb, and they all gathered together to put on an exhibition basically and donated the proceeds to Joss's family. And that became the All-Star game that we know today. And I would argue that baseball is one of the only sports that still has, a pretty robust, All-Star experience, with the home run derby. And I think basketball does a pretty good job as well. But like when you think about like the Pro Bowl, it just seems so irrelevant nowadays and all that type of thing. But baseball, I think the All-Star game being in the middle of the season and just the whole energy around it's fun. This is a card, a $300-ish card, I would say. I wouldn't want to pay much more than that. I would look for a low grade, nice copy that presents well. I used to have a one. It looked pretty bad. But yeah, it's a card I would like to reacquire. at some point. Not in a rush, but yeah, that would be my dead ball era selection.
I love it, and I know the story that you're talking about. It's
Good.
great, and same thing. The Ken Burns documentary was the first place that I saw it, and I've heard a few other things about it, since then, and just that's a great choice. I love that choice. Fantastic. All right. Well, the first choice that I went with was dead ball. I'm just going to go to the next one chronologically, which is 1930s and 40s pre-war. So that'd be play balls, some Bowmans, whatever else. Gaudies, of course. And so what I ended up going with was the 1949 Bowman Roy Campanella.
Nice.
Also as my catcher. I don't understand. People who know vintage, people who understand baseball know Roy Campanella for his history, but I'm surprised that for people who were as decorated as he was and who had such sort of tragic ends to their careers that he did, surprised he's not discussed more. So his career ended early because of a car accident, and it started a little bit late because of the color barrier. But still, despite that, he won 3 MVPs. The only player who's won more than 3 MVPs is Barry Bonds, who's won like 7, right? And then you have this long list of 3 MVP winners: Trout, Ohtani, Campanella, Yogi Berra, and then others. There's a decent sized list, and Campanella is one of them. And I was very young, but I was at the 1985 Hall of Fame induction. My parents wanted to see Lou Brock get inducted, and so we went. But then he was there, right? He was in his wheelchair after he was in the accident, right? Which is why he retired. And but I was like, who was that? And I can remember them explaining to me who it was, this Roy Campanella. And I love this image as well. There's other Campanellas I could have picked, but just this beautiful solid background 49 Bowman. I looked for this at the National, and I was actually standing next to, he doesn't know this, but I was right next to Dan, Vintage Card Guy. We were at Stan's whatever called it, booth. And I was about to ask about a 49 Campanella, and Dan says, let me see that Campanella. And I looked at it. I could see that it wasn't the best copy. He didn't get it. I didn't even end up looking at it, but this is on my list of a card I would like to get at some point. I'm very picky in the vintage or any card really that I add to my collection at this point when any decent amount of money is involved.
Yeah.
But this certainly will be a card I would like to add one day because he fits in, right? I mean, I've got a nice Ohtani card. He's got 3 MVPs.
Yep.
From time to time, I'll pick up a Bonds card. He's got 7, and why not have Campanella in there as well? But I knew this was actually the first card that I put in. So we had the 9 spots, 12 if you count the bench spots. But the number one card that I went to out of the whole list was the Campanella.
Nice. I don't know. I mean, I am aware of Campanella. I did not know he had won 3 MVPs. And anybody that's won 3 MVPs is very collectible in my book. I think that's like a very just impressive career feat. And those are beautiful cards. I love the early Bowmans. I watch the Mangini collection. He shows a lot of those. I like the ones with the nicknames too at the bottom. I think those are cool. So those are beautiful cards, Dave. Great choice. I'm just going to follow you with my pre-war card here, and it's another 3-time MVP winner. I went with the 1940 DiMaggio play ball. Specifically the 1940, which is people might find interesting because he won the MVP in 39 and he won the MVP in 41 and he had the hit streak in 41. So I went with the card right in the middle of those two. And this is something that I started to kind of realize as I went along. It's like, I don't need the very specific, it doesn't have to be from that season. Like I don't need the 61 Maris. I don't need it doesn't have to be the 56 Mantle. It doesn't have to be the 22, but like, just if I like the card, like the most important thing to me in this draft was I have to really like the card. The 39, and I have to really like the price. That's very important too. The 39, I feel, is probably, more expensive with it being the earlier one. The 41 is in color, which it looks cool, but I actually like this one better just because it feels a little bit more, I don't know, sort of just DiMaggio. Like I think of him in black and white, and I don't mind this color being in black and white. I love how it says 1939 pennant down there too. I just think that's such a magical card. DiMaggio has always fascinated me, maybe even more so than the other Yankee legends, Ruth, Gehrig, Mantle. Something about DiMaggio is just very, I don't know how to describe it, but maybe it's, he dated Marilyn Monroe. I don't think that has anything to do with, but he has just this aura about him that I really like. 7.1 WAR in 1940, 3-time MVP winner. So he's in that group there with Campy. Yeah, just a special player, a special card. I would look for that in a low grade 1 for hopefully, under $1,500. I wouldn't, if it was creeping up towards 2,500, I'd probably be out of play there. But yeah, my buddy Shane, Shoebox Legends, had one of these, and I texted him last night and asked him if he sold it because I knew he was thinking about selling it. And I was like, I'm going to be talking about that car tomorrow. I should check in with Shane and see if he still wants to sell his or whatever, but his is already gone. So this is probably a card that's a couple years away yet for me. It's not something I'm looking to buy tomorrow or anything like that. I would be patient and wait, but I just think it's a special card of a special player.
It's a fantastic card. I'm with you. Sometimes I prefer the black and white to the color when you have the options. It's why I like the 39 play ball Ted Williams, just because it almost feels like it's a still shot right out of a video, which it's not, but I should say a film, not a video. But yeah, wonderful card. Yep. All right. I am moving on now to I believe it is the only card that I have on my list that I own.
Oh, okay.
And I've owned it twice. I got it once. It was one of my favorites, and I had to move it when I was trying to pick up the Jackie Robinson back in 24. And then I reacquired it earlier this year, and it just made my year. And that card is the 1954 Red Heart Stan Musial.
Nice.
Incredible. It's now a 70-year-old color match. It looks stunning. It's how I imagine and how I remember Musial looking. He had a services contract with the Cardinals for decades after he retired, so he would be around. And so if you were part of a book club where you had to read 20 books and get a free stuffed animal, one of the things would be is he would show up. Excuse me. He would be there, and he'd play his harmonica, or he'd come to your high school, or he'd be at something. And this didn't happen daily, but there are probably 2 or 3 times when I was growing up in St. Louis that I'd be at an event and he would be there performing his services, shaking hands, doing his work for the Cardinals. And he was aw shucks. His public persona, how we remember him now, really seemed to me in the few times that I met him how he was. We weren't friends or anything like that, but he was just friendly. And I like this one. I almost went with his 1953 Bowman. I love that card, but this is the one I ended up going with because it's iconic. Red Heart, of course, being the dog food. It was not in the dog food. You had to mail away for it, as I understand it, and which explains why there aren't more damaged copies. The problems with this card is that it's off center most of the time. It's not because it was smeared with dog food, so on the back or anything like that. So which I'm grateful for. I've thought about maybe pairing this someday with the Mantle, but I don't want to pay for a Mickey Mantle because I don't think that he's all that great. When I think of that era, I think of Willie Mays. I don't think of Mickey Mantle. But to me, this is the iconic 1950s anyway Musial card.
That's wild that you met him. I can't even imagine meeting a player of that. I guess I met Peyton Manning once, but he's closer to my age, so it didn't feel as that's wild though. No, those are beautiful cards. I've looked at those Red Hearts, and the fact that it's Stan Musial on a red background is that's hard to beat. So pretty solid 50s selection there.
Before we just jump in, just to sort of reset, you can see here we've each picked 3 so far. So we're about a quarter of the way through the exercise once you count the bench players also. So I'm excited to see who you've got next.
Yeah, I'll just go with the 50s. And you were just talking about Mantle, and I went with the 56 Mantle. I also tend to think of, you tend to think of Mantle and Mays together. And I tend to think, I think most people would kind of agree that Willie Mays is the more talented player, but Mantle has such a hobby demand. And I mean, obviously Mickey Mantle, 3-time MVP, Triple Crown winner in 56. But I just think that 56 is such an essential card. And I think it's one of the most beautiful, I would say after ultra modern, the 50s are probably my go-to decade. I love pretty much all the sets in the 50s, except a couple of them. I love 56. I love, 58 is probably my favorite. I like 54, I like 53, I like 55. I like the Bowman sets. But this card specifically is just really special to me. I just think it's very beautiful. I would look for this in a low grade PSA 1, with, good eye appeal, all that kind of stuff in that sort of $1,000 range, maybe up towards 1,200 if I was really feeling wild. But again, kind of like the play ball, it's not a card that I can see myself buying anytime soon. Just for that much money, I would be hesitant and I would probably deploy that capital elsewhere. But it is a card I would like to own at some point in my life. And then, Mantle in 56, one of the greatest baseball seasons of all time, 11.3 WAR MVP and the Triple Crown. So I don't need to tell anybody about the 56 Mantle. Everybody knows that card, but that's the one I went with.
Good. Could you just say a little bit more about why you would go with like a PSA 1 or an SGC 1?
Just because I couldn't afford anything more than because I don't care if it's like I want the cheapest copy I can possibly find that looks good. And if that card was $2,000 in a 1, I'll never buy it. Like, I'm just not going to. I could buy a super fractor of a modern player that I like, more than that. So it would just be out of play. And I'm not expecting to be super upwardly mobile in my career here in the next few years. I like my job and I plan to make about, a similar amount of money. Maybe I'll have some sort of wild cash infusion and then I can get crazy on a 56 Mantle, but highly doubt it. So it's a card that it's in play for me, in sort of that $1,000 range in a nice low grade, with eye appeal. If it gets crazy, which I don't think it will, then it's not in play. But yeah, if I was choosing one card from the 50s to go for first, it would be that one. Other cards I love the 58 Willie Mays. That would probably be my backup option. I love the 53 Mantle. I love the 53 Satchel, the 53 Jackie, but I've owned those cards before and I've sold them. I would probably prioritize a card that I haven't owned before. I love the 52 Bowman, Willie Mays, 54 Ernie Banks. So there's a lot of different options there. So like if for some reason the Mantle went like parabolic, even in low grade, I would just go somewhere else because I like all those cards basically the same. So it just comes down to price.
So it's a wonderful set as well. And I'm sorry I showed such a beat up copy, but most of them are vertical and card ladder, so I was able to find a horizontal one. Yeah. Speaking of which, I'm going to go horizontal as well for my next one. I'm moving now to the 1960s. This was my last choice, and I kind of boxed myself in. It was I had the rule where I had one position player per, and it was the 1960s, and it was a second baseman. And I know Bill Mazeroski could have been a choice. Blanking on now, but the Yankees second base, Bobby Richardson could have been a choice, but instead I ended up going with the 1965 Topps Joe Morgan.
Oh, nice.
Joe Morgan, like back-to-back MVPs, not when he was with Houston, but when he gets to the Reds, eventually becomes an announcer and kind of hurts his legacy a little bit as an announcer. He didn't do anything bad, nothing worth being canceled or whatever, but he was just kind of irritating when he was one of the early announcers with John Miller on ESPN Baseball. The reason I picked this card, and I'm usually not a big fan of dual rookie cards, whether it's Mike Schmidt or Pete Rose or Joe Morgan, but I like this one because it's one of the few and very short years when you had the helmet or the hat for the Houston Colt 45s.
Yeah.
Right before they came the Astros. And in fact, if you look at the 66 card, he's an Astro. So I picked this one more for the hat than I did for the player. I do certainly respect him and appreciate what he did. But like I said, this was my 12th and final choice. And so second baseman in the 1960s wasn't exactly their greatest era. Had I gone back in time, I could have gone Rogers Hornsby. Had I been more modern, I could have found somebody more interesting. But I don't mind. I mean, Joe Morgan, he was really the engine for the Big Red Machine Reds of the 1970s. And so I could do a lot worse, I think, than having him here.
I like how you said you picked it because of the hat, and I like that. I think those little variables are so important, like with collecting and with cards. It's like one tiny thing can make all the difference when it comes to a card. It can be
Mhm.
whether it's the photograph, whether it's the border, whether it's the, it's a combo. And, maybe those aren't tiny things. Those are actually fairly big things. But I love that's what's so fun about collecting is you get to decide what variables matter, what variables don't matter, what you like, what you don't like, what's important, what's not important, all that kind of stuff. And so I think that's a card I never would have even thought of, but and I never even knew that existed with that Colt 45 uniform. So that's super fascinating. So I'm going to build off what you just did there because you mentioned Mike Schmidt, and we're going to jump to the 1970s. And I chose. I came down between two cards that I felt were pretty equal. I'll use one of them later in my bench selections, but for this selection I'm going to choose the 1974 Mike Schmidt. Um, Mike Schmidt, again, back to the three MVPs. He was a three-time MVP winner, World Series MVP winner. In 1974, he had a 9.7 WAR. His rookie, like Dave referenced, was a combo card. This follow-up, the 1974, was a individual shot, portrait shot, posed image. Very beautiful set. I don't know if people like 74 that much, but it's really grown on me. And I think part of the reason is because of the heritage set from 23. I have a lot of the big cards from that set, so I'm just like really connected to it. And I think, I just think this is a really nice set, and a lot of the photography in 74 is really, really spectacular. One of my other cards that I'm going to talk about later is probably one of the most beautiful baseball cards I've ever seen, and it's from 1974 Topps. I don't think this is like the most fantastic photograph or anything. I actually don't like it when they have those long sleeve whatever under their uniforms. I just think like the 63 Koufax really bothers me with those little jackets underneath. I don't know what that's about, if that was for some specific reason, but I don't like it. That would be the only detractor from this card. But his 73 is the rookie card. But this 74 Topps, this is a card I'd be looking for in sort of the $200 range and maybe like an 8. Ideally, I'd actually just buy a raw card and grade it myself and get like a nice, looking 7 or something. But I think for under $200, just we were talking about pop reports earlier. In PSA 8, this card is a 1,400. There's 1,428 copies in an 8. If you jump up to a 9, there's 346 copies. In the 10, it's a pop 14. 1428 sounds like a big number, but I don't think that's all that much. And for $200 or less, I think that's a pretty decent value. Again, not something I'm jumping up and down to go buy tomorrow or anything like that. It's not super high priority. But I think for his caliber of play, his career, and the fact that his rookie card is a combo card, I think that makes this kind of a neat item.
Yeah, I love this set. I'm glad that you picked it. I know you said you don't know not sure how people feel, and you never know. The 70s was such an interesting,
Yeah.
and I use that term loosely for
It's
cards.
it's a very gritty decade, just very gritty. It seems,
It fits with the
um,
70s.
yeah, exactly. And that's what's like
Yeah.
the 50s are so vibrant and colorful. The 60s is kind of a bridge between the two, but then the 70s is kind of just, yeah, it's a little bit murky.
Yeah.
But it's got its charm. So,
Yeah, one of my favorite cards ever is the 74 Dave Winfield rookie.
mhm.
And I didn't pick it though. So I think that's why I just thought now I would just mention it here.
Nice.
Let's mention it here real quick. Yep. So, all right. Anything else on the Schmidt?
No, we'll talk more about 74 later.
All right. So this one take me just a second here to pull up. I also, in the 70s, I also went with a third baseman in the 70s as well. Except I went with a different set. I went with if I can pull this up here. Thanks for being patient. I went with the 1975 SSPC George Brett rookie.
Nice.
And there it is. Just a crazy set. Just kind of fascinated. SSPC, I believe, stood for Sports Stars Printing or Publishing Company. Sports Stars Publishing Company, I think. Fun little fact there is that Keith Olbermann, the broadcaster, wrote the backs of them. He wrote the copy for the back. There's just some crazy players who show up in this set. Lou Brock and Keith Hernandez have a dual card in this set. Actually, I do like the George Brett Topps card more, but I just want to get something a little bit different. This card is quite a bit cheaper, I think, than the Topps card is. It's not really all that exciting. His name's not even on the front, right? I should have captured the back, but I didn't do it. But what you were saying about the grittiness of the 70s, right? Nixon happened, Vietnam was over, there was, oil prices were soaring, morale was down, Topps had no competition either, right? Donruss and Fleer don't come around until 81. And so Topps was just sort of mailing it in, I thought. It doesn't mean there aren't some iconic images, but the images were iconic not because Topps made an effort, but because the players turned out to be amazing, right? Like, Eddie Murray, George Brett, Mike Schmidt, Dave Winfield, Ozzie Smith, and some other ones as well. And so I picked this one almost as a protest for Topps laziness, right? But also because I like that. I like these sort of random sets that were around. And the fact that George Brett has a rookie card that not a lot of people either acknowledge or appreciate, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put this in there right now.
That's cool. I've never seen that card before, and the first thing my eyes go to is those two those towers in the back. I assume that's the iconic sort of look at what is it, Kauffman State, or what's the name of the stadium?
Kauffman. Yep.
Yeah. Is that what that is, you think, behind him?
It could be. I'm not sure when Kauffman opened.
I guess it could be lights else, just other lights at some other ballpark. But yeah, that is a super gritty looking card. He looks like rough and ready and just intense, tough guy. That's how you think of George Brett. So yeah, that's a very, very 70s baseball card. And it was interesting. This was a really healthy exercise for me because of this kind of stuff, because like the 70s, I've always just kind of discounted because I was like, the cards are just kind of ugly. And a lot of them are, I think, still. But I did find some beauties, and I'm seeing a little bit more beauty in the sort of the rugged, just kind of just ugly nature of these cards. And I like also, you mentioned something, kind of a protest. Like I find myself doing that more and more with how these manufacturers are acting with all this stuff. It's like their behavior, I want to sort of counteract with my own buying decisions. So like, whatever they do more, I want to do less, or whatever they do less, I want to do more. Just, that's just the nature of what it is. So I like it. That's a tough looking card for a tough looking baseball player.
Yeah, 100%. So, all right, what do you got next?
Yeah, I skipped the 60s, so we're gonna go back there, and I'm gonna kind of tee you up here, Dave. I've got you as my St. Louis guy. I'm going with the 68 Gibson, 68 Bob Gibson, the burlap. So Bob Gibson, obviously, big time. Another thing, just side tangent, I'm surprised how captivated I was by pitchers in this exercise. Like I picked so many pitchers. I didn't do it properly like Dave did and pick each position, but I ended up on a lot of pitchers, and I just see a lot of value there for me personally. Gibson in 68, Cy Young, 11.2 WAR, 1.12 ERA. They lowered the mound, or excuse me, they raised the mound. No, they lowered the mound after this season. Yeah. Look at that card. That is like such a baseball card, man. Pitcher cards, Bob Gibson, red hat, just the Cardinals sticking out over the top of that little lower third there. Just such a beautiful, beautiful card, man. Bob Gibson, this is like his time. Two-time World Series MVP, 10.4 WAR the following year in 69. 1970, he had an 8.9 WAR. He won the Cy Young in 68, won it again in 70. This card I'm looking for in sort of that, again, this is where the value with pitchers comes in, like high grade. And I'm not looking for just any random 8 or whatever. Like it would have to be really nice. Again, my preferred acquisition mode would be buy it raw, grade it myself, get a 7 or an 8. But you can buy 8s in like the sub $300 range, and the pop on those is like 688 in PSA. The pop, the PSA 9's a pop 180. I wouldn't mess with those, but yeah, a nice looking 6 or 7, you're probably looking at, under $150. And I just think that's a phenomenal card representing a phenomenal player from a phenomenal, just the era of the pitcher, the year of the pitcher. And then after that, some things changed. So what
Yeah,
do you guys say about Bob Gibson?
Yeah, the 1.12 ERA, Denny McClain winning 30 games. I don't love the set, but I love this picture. And Bob Gibson was interesting, his images, in that he looked young. All of a sudden, boom, he looked old.
Yeah.
Now his performance didn't get old. He aged very well. But he just went from being like a kid to being like the veteran who you do not piss off. And I think this really helps capture that transition. You know, I'm a sucker for portrait shots. I think this is a really good one. He has several portrait shots.
Yeah, he looks good on a lot of cards. He's a guy that really had some good photographs. So.
Yeah, good. So it was just a wonderful choice. I love that you picked this, and this makes me happy. This will not be the last time that Bob Gibson
there we go
today as well. So, all right. So my next one is a card that is very, very common. It's a card I used to own, and several times, many copies. And it's going to be the second outfielder. The first outfielder was Musial, and now the next outfielder, as I move to the 1980s, is the 1987 Donruss Bo Jackson. I guess his most valuable card, if you want to call it that, from his playing days is the 1986 Topps Traded Tiffany. But I don't know. I think that felt like a press release picture, right? His 87 Topps, where he's outfielding a ball, it's nice, but I feel like he's almost too far away. I feel like they didn't have the right lens, and they kind of just went with what they had on that shot. And it's nice. This, to me, is the Bo Jackson hero shot, right? He's nowadays in 2025, you know, players, you know, they do CrossFit, they do P90X or whatever it is. They are training from the womb to be solid, strong, like professional athletes, right? But Bo was different. And I'm not saying anything people don't already know, but you look at this, he fills out a uniform there the way nobody filled out a uniform in 1987. Like it doesn't fit him. It literally does not fit him. You can see the seams from the underneath the armpit, like going into him, basically, right? The shirt sleeve is being hiked up. You know, he's got like he's just playing catch in the outfield before a game or something, or maybe spring training, whenever this was. But to me, you have this, plus you have the iconic rated rookie logo in the bottom right, and I could not have Bo Jackson somewhere in here. To me, it's him or Jim Thorpe or Babe Didrikson as the athlete, the supreme athlete of the 20th century. And so I love having him here.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most beautiful photographs on an 80s card. Like you said, and combine that with the uniform, the classic hero shot with the rated rookie logo. That card just screams 80s. And like, yeah, you can't deny the athleticism and just the hero sort of image that Bo Jackson conjures up. So
yeah, and one last thing.
Cool.
Sorry to interrupt you. I mentioned
you're good.
I mentioned how the seams from the armpits are going up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just making that up. If I get this, if I can zoom in, where am I here? Okay, look at that.
Yeah.
The pits, you know.
Yeah, that's a schmedium or whatever they call it.
Right. He's warming up. This is a pregame shot, and he's already through his uniform because that thing is up there.
Yeah.
So I know that's kind of gross, but I just wanted to.
No,
that's thing.
That's part of the charm of the card.
Mm-hmm.
That's the stuff, man. That's a sweet one. Yeah, I thought about Bo Jackson too, especially when we got to the 80s, and yeah, I was wondering. I thought he might appear on one of our lists, so I'm glad he did.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, let's just stick with the 80s. How about some Fernando Mania, if anybody's on board for that? I'm going with the 1982 Fernando Valenzuela, which is not the rookie card. It's going to be the second year. Maybe he had one before that. I'm not sure. But Fernando just passed away last year, actually. And I know when Ice Cube was doing that sort of iconic pregame performance in the World Series, he gave Fernando a shout out, which was cool, doing this for Fernando, and they did. I'm not like a Dodgers fan. I'm a Shohei Ohtani fan. I'm a Mookie Betts fan, but I'm not a Dodgers fan. I love this card, man. Absolutely love it. I love the 82 tops. I just like 82, the design, the graphic design on the border more than I like 81 with the little hat in the corner. Fernando, in 1981, he won the Cy Young and was the Rookie of the Year. So that would have been the year before this card. And what I kind of, again, this sort of the trend I saw within myself with these selections is I don't mind picking the card that came the year after, because I think it still symbolizes that player's peak, their dominance, their performance from the year prior. Like this card connects me to Fernando Mania just as much as the 81 would. He had a great season in 82 as well. He had 6.18 or 6.1 WAR, 2.87 ERA, 119 games. So he won more games in 82. I love this image. This card is one. If there's any card on this list that I might actually need to go buy before this video airs, it's this one, just because it's so cheap. It's in a PSA 9 with a pop 107. This card is like $40. And there's like 3 or 4 on eBay right now. And I've been looking at them, and they're each have a problem. One of them has a bunch of like fish eyes and dots on the hat, which is very detracting. One of them looks like it has some debris in the back of the slab. And that drives me crazy. Like when there's like a hair in the case, because then you have to reholder it or just know that there's a hair in the case or whatever. I can't tell if it's in the slab or on top of it, but either way, I messaged the seller and they never wrote me back. Another one has a soft corner, and another one has like a mark on the or some piece of debris like on one of the white borders. So each of them has kind of an issue. But I think at a PSA 9, I think the reason the pop's so low is why would anybody grade that? I mean, it's just not a card that people probably think of that much. The PSA 10, there's 10 copies. There's 198 in an 8. I could go buy an 8 for $20. I should probably just buy a raw copy, grade it myself, and get an 8, and that's probably what I would enjoy the most. But if I can kind of wrap my head around one of those 9s here in the next couple of days, you might see this on my Instagram soon. I just love that card. I like Fernando. I'm not crazy about most of the 80s sets, broadly speaking, but I like that 82.
It's a great. And as you're talking about 1982 tops, just a quick shout out to Kevin Cormier, who I believe collected, I think it was all the Hall of Famers or stars or whoever from the 82 top set, all on PSA 8s, I think was his goal.
Nice.
Just a beautiful set. I'm really glad that you picked that card.
The Nolan Ryan is beautiful that year too. That's a nice looking card.
So was Ricky Henderson's.
Yep.
Yeah, but Fernando, I'm glad that you didn't get stuck on the rookie for him, because the rookie's fine. It's fine, but it's that 82 design, the 82 image that seems to capture who Fernando was.
Yeah, I looked at the 81, and I don't dislike the 81, but for the price discrepancy and just the aesthetics on the 82, I just feel like that's the move for me. So
yeah, good. All right, well, I'm going to jump into the 1990s now, and I picked St. Louis Cardinal Ozzie Smith. And for this one, I went with the 1992 Topps Gold Ozzie Smith non-winner. This one here. Beautiful card. There were 2 different versions of it. There was the ones that say winner down at the bottom right, and there was like a mail away type of thing. But then there were these as well that do not say winner on it. And these are the ones that I liked. I used to own this card. It was one of the few cards I've ever owned in a PSA 10, and I sold it to, I think, MK. MK was looking for the sit, so I sold it to him at cost. But the reason I picked this card, I think there are better Ozzie images. I love his 83 tops and that clean white Cardinal uniform. I like his 82 tops traded, the first Cardinal uniform. We call it his Cardinals rookie, right? He's in the 90s. He's also got Select Gold. He's got Raves. He's got all these other cards. But this was, a lot of times people will talk about the 1993 finest set because it had the first refractors for baseball and basketball, and then 94 football came along as well. But this was the first gold parallel, right? So if you just go to 1992 Topps baseball, Ozzie Smith has a plain old card, and it's basically this. But they went with a separate set, so it wasn't quite a parallel, but it was close to it. And I just feel like it's a set that's lost to time. And so I needed a shortstop. I knew I wanted to get Ozzie in there somewhere, but I really surprised myself that I put him in the 90s instead of the 80s, but that's because I also wanted to put Bo Jackson into the 80s. And then I thought, I'm going to go with this set because it is just, let's give this first gold card some love. Now, gold is like one of the standards of the hobby. Like you want gold. In a lot of ways, gold out of 50 for Topps is more desirable than orange out of 25. I'm sorry, I know how much you like the orange, but people go for the gold. This was the first gold, 1992 Topps gold, Ozzie Smith.
Beauty. That set really connects me to my childhood. I would have been 8 years old, I think, in 90. Is that 92? Yeah. So I opened those. I pack pulled some of those golds. I think I had the Nolan Ryan at one point, but yeah, those are really special cards. I still have an album of that 92 set down in my basement somewhere. I'll have to look at that. But I love that image for Ozzy. I like that you put him in the 90s. I am jealous of you being from St. Louis. I feel like that's such a magical baseball energy there. Fun fact for the audience: I've actually never been to a baseball game. Never been to an MLB game. I've been to baseball, like minor league games and stuff, college games. But yeah, just when I think about those Cardinals guys and Ozzie Smith being one of them, it's just like I've been to St. Louis and I've been around Busch Stadium and when there was games going on and stuff, and it's palpable just the connection that that city has to that team and in that image. Yeah, it's a cool card. It's a cool set. I like the early 90s as well. I was wondering where I was most interested to see where you would go in the 90s and maybe the 80s, just because those are or the 2000s, because I know how how big of a deal St. Louis baseball is, in that type of thing. And those are eras of cards that I'm just not as, immersed in. So I'm interested to see you choose that one, but I think it was pretty solid.
Yeah. And, it was probably took for granted, being down there. And now I appreciate it. And, if you're from St. Louis, baseball is a religion. We've lost 2 NFL teams and no one cares.
Yeah.
Right. Because they like the Blues and they like the Cardinals.
You can feel so yeah, you can feel it like as an outsider going there. Like I remember me and my high school buddies just did like a random road trip there when we were like 18. We just like 5 of us in a car just drove there, and they were playing the Cubs one night. And I remember just being at a gas station, just like hanging out and like just chatting with the clerk for whatever reason. And he was like, "Oh man, blah, 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 the Cubs are in town. It's crazy," and all this kind of stuff. But you can feel that energy in St. Louis around baseball. And yeah, that's spectacular, man.
All right, man. What do you got next?
Yeah. So I'll do my 90s. When I think about the 90s, I think of the late 90s typically, just from a connection standpoint. And this was hard for me because we're getting into some different type of stuff now. But I went with the 1999 Pedro Martinez Topps Chrome Refractor. Pedro, I would, if you had asked me who my favorite team was when I was a kid, I would have always said the Yankees and that Jeter was my favorite player and everything. But I had a bit of imposter syndrome around that. I don't ever think I was that big of a Yankees fan. I think he wasn't even that big of a baseball fan as a kid. I always watched all the playoff games and I was just fascinated by it, fascinated by the history, the movies, Rookie of the Year, Sandlot, all that kind of stuff is what I was more like connected to as it related to baseball. I was more of a football fan as a kid. But Pedro really captivated me, and I was always kind of rooting against him just because I was generally rooting for those Yankees teams. But this card specifically, I think is important. Pedro was dominant in 1999 and 2000. He had an 11.6 WAR in 1999, 2.07 ERA, won 23 games. Cy Youngs both those years. He was a just incredible pitcher in a steroid era, for hitting. So he was just the guy that you had to watch. He was just so fascinating. And again, going back to just like how many pitchers I picked, like it really just kind of, I think it kind of sparked something in me, like to just remind me of how much I love pitching. I really like pitching. And yeah, this card is rare, man. It's like a pop 6 or something like that. Like it's very, like there was like one maybe on eBay, but it's hard to find, and it's probably not a card I'm going to acquire anytime soon. Probably a couple hundred, maybe a few $100 or whatever. But it's a simple design, but the card is beautiful. You got the mound encompasses the entire like lower third. You got Pedro winding back and throwing, and just very simple, clean design. But I guarantee you that card is extremely shiny. Anything from 1999 shines very well, and that was my selection there.
Look at the angle on his right leg. How
Yeah,
is his ligaments not
it's
snapped?
like, yeah, it's weird. Gosh, he's just really, yeah, that's a great card. That is one I'd like. It would be such a random addition though, because I don't have any baseball cards from that era. I don't have any Pedro Martinez cards. I think about, like the Cardi C's of the world and the Splendid Sports of the worlds and all their fancy Pedros, and they have all those nice cards. But so it would be really kind of off brand and out of character for me to just buy one random Pedro Martinez card. But I think if I went with some sort of like dominant pitcher collection, I think I could talk myself into it doing something like that. But
yeah, what's kind of crazy is you were talking before about the steroids type thing. Well, he and Maddox, it's just what they were able to do. Maddox throwing 92, 91, but just the crazy movement, and then of course Pedro was Pedro. It almost increases their.
Were they ever implicated in it? I'm really not familiar with like who was whatever and who wasn't. I don't know if that Pedro ever had any sort of that kind of stuff going on. I always thought he didn't, or never was really implicated in it. But
no, of the sort of the big four from that era, right? It was Pedro, Maddox, Clemens, and Randy Johnson, right? It's Clemens obviously implicated.
Yeah.
But then, Randy Johnson seemed to have that sort of physical advantage of being 6'10" or whatever he was. Pedro's tiny, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too. Yeah.
But they were just, the way they pitched was incredible.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Moving into the 2000s now. We're getting more current. I picked up my first baseman here. And the first baseman that I decided to go with was the 2001 Ultimate Collection Albert Pujols out of 250.
There we go.
Beautiful card. All right. So there it is. Such a it's Greg, who is Paper and Chrome, friend of mine, but we did on the shallow end, he did like where he surveyed something like 50 people and had them rank 50 Pujols collectors and had them rank their all-time rookie cards. And I think this was even outside of the top 10. I think it was like 11 or 12. And it really struck me as I was doing this exercise how much I was picking cards based on like sort of other values. And the reason that I like this one is because of the colors on it. He's not hitting, he wasn't exactly known as being a base runner. He was a really good defender when he came up, had a great arm, but quickly moved from third base, briefly the outfield, and then stuck at first base, right? He was just kind of there, the big lumbering first baseman after that. But look at the shining purple and gold on that card. It's also zooming in. It has the wonderful white home uniform with the double, the birds on the bat. There's number 5 there. It's out of 250. I really like his SP Authentic out of 1250. This is 1/5 as scarce.
Yeah.
His gold rainbow Topps Chrome card is probably one of his best rookie cards, but you have to basically do an equation to figure out how many there are. So in terms of like a rarity, this is one of his more rare ones, because back then they weren't exactly like out of 5s, right? This was 20s, quarter century ago. So for him anyway, out of 250, plus the gorgeous design of that card, plus just being a little bit different as far as the cards of him go, right? This one really stood out to me. And if I'm being honest, I'm trying to acquire it right now.
Oh, okay.
So I think I'm just sort of hung up on it.
I was very curious. I knew I was going to see a Pujols card from you, and I was very curious to see which one it was. I've actually never seen this card before, and I can see why that you liked it, because, yeah, all those factors combined with the appearance of it, I could definitely see this being highly attractive to a Pujols collector or St. Louis baseball fan. So that's pretty cool. I do like how I like how he's running too. Like that's like one of the last things you would ever expect to see on on a card of his. But yeah, like you said, from that era, it's just a little bit different version of his skills. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I really like it when we have players who, when they're known for a certain thing,
Yeah.
and then the card shows them doing something else. There's a random card from the mid '90s of Mark McGuire. He was in the Asian uniform catching a pop up.
Oh,
It's like
okay.
something,
Yeah.
like, what are you doing with this card?
Yeah.
It's a terrible image, but it's kind of hilarious, when you see it, or like Lou Brock batting,
Yeah.
or something like that, where, because he's a base stealer. So off the board, when they were designing this, I figured they were just like, hey, this is a nice image.
Yeah.
It fits within the design.
He's running. His jersey looks good. He's
Right.
Yeah. Nice.
They might have had to use the image out of necessity, right? It's supposed to be, form follows function, but I almost feel like they went the opposite with this one, and I'm okay with it.
There's so many photography episodes we could do. Like there is like some of the worst images ever on cards, and then some of the most beautiful images ever on cards. And it's just wild to see like how big of a gap there can be in between. Like how did this one pass, Q&A, whatever, but I don't know. So, all right, I'll do my 2000s. Silence that other phone. This won't take long. This is another Pedro card. So I went with the 99 refractor for the 90s, and then I went with his 2000 Topps Chrome refractor for the 2000s, because I was like, well, those were both dominant seasons, and these are both beautiful cards. I'm not crazy about I don't ever see myself collecting 90s or 2000s like that intensely, but those two cards, very specifically, I was a big football card collector at that time, and those Topps Chrome sets are very nostalgic for me. So I would like to have both of those in a pairing. In 2000, again, just another dominant season, like I said, Cy Young, 1.74 ERA, 118 games, 9.4 WAR. So big time card. I like the look of the, we'll see if you get it up here, but I can't remember which one I like better. The 99.
Took me a while. I just found it. Okay.
Yeah, I can't honestly remember off the top of my head what this looks like, but I know it looks cool. Okay, yeah, I think I like the 99 maybe better. This one, it's just from a sort of a direct to like straightaway shot where you'd be like kind of looking at him from behind the plate almost. He's got his knee up in the air. Cool design, but yeah, I think the 99's better. But this is still, I guarantee you that card is fantastic in hand, very shiny, very rare. Pops on it super low. It's like a pop 12 and a PSA 9. So again, nothing I'm going to be adding here in the near term, but down the road, I could see myself kind of messing around with something like that.
Great. Wonderful. I like the idea of pairing those two together also. So I need just a moment here to pull up my next one. I'm in now to the 2010s and 20s era, which we combined into one. So mine is going to might be a little bit of a surprise because it's not a rookie. It's a horizontal. It's close to a rookie card, but it's not his rookie card. And it's a base refractor. But I love the image. Let me see if I can find it here. All right, there it is. Okay. Well, I found a copy of the black refractor of it, but it's not the. Imagine it's the base refractor, and that's with the 2013 Topps Chrome Mike Trout refractor that has the rookie gold cup on it. Right.
Beautiful.
Such a nice image, right? Kind of nostalgic for when Mike Trout could run.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually been thinking lately about picking up a Mike Trout card because his prices are just down, and we thought. And then he started off this year so well, like, oh, he might be back. No, even at 75% might be back, but then he's sitting like 230 now.
Yeah.
As we record this, high 220s. You wonder if it's just gone for him. But speaking of people with 3 MVPs,
yep.
Closing on 400 homers, he's almost likely a lock for the Hall. But he was incredible. And to think that the Angels had 2 3-time MVPs starting on their team within a period of like 9 years. And still didn't do anything with it is sort of tragic in a way. But I like this image. I'm not the biggest horizontal fan. I don't feel like turning cards around sometimes, but I like the rookie gold cup, and you don't see a lot of action like this. Plus the emotion on the face, the action on the face is terrific.
I think that might be his best flagship card. I know the rookie's a good image. He's got other good images on cards, but I've always gravitated towards this one as well, and especially with the cup too. If you get a good image combined with the cup, then you're you're looking good. So
Yeah.
I like that one. And yeah,
All right.
you can't go wrong with Trout, especially at suppressed prices. So
Right. Okay. Well, we have
are we in the bench now?
we're on the bench, and
Okay.
the rules for this is we can pick any three that we want, and so we are at about the hour and 10 mark.
Yep.
So why don't we kind of? I don't want to blow through them too quickly,
Yep.
but I'm going to try personally to go a little quicker on
Yep.
these last.
Yep. Same here. All right. So I'm going back to the 74 set. I referenced this earlier. I want to go with the 1974 Tom Seaver. I think this is one of the most beautiful cards I've ever seen in my life. While Dave pulls that up, just on Tom Seaver, 3-time Cy Young winner in 73, so the year before this card. And he won it in 74. Or no, not in 74. Excuse me. He won it in 75. So this is going to be the card in between those Cy Young seasons. It's just like I was saying with the Mike Schmidt earlier, 74 tops. It's not like a mind-blowing design or anything as far as like the bordering and stuff, but the photography is very unique. You get a lot of like wide shots and you get a lot of just different shots. It's not all portraits, or it's not all hitting poses, or it's not all this or that, but there's a lot of variety in the photography. And a lot of what is beautiful about 74 tops is a lot of the backgrounds. And if you look at this card, and if you're listening, it's just a huge background crowd shot. And then you've got Seaver in the foreground throwing, he's already thrown the pitch. You see the first baseman or whoever behind him. Maybe that's probably maybe that's the second baseman. I don't know. But yeah, it's a horizontal card, just Tom Seaver, New York Mets. And I just think it's so simple and so beautiful. And it's sandwiched right between his two of his best seasons. And just value. I mean, PSA 10, Pop 19, PSA 9, Pop 210, 657 and an 8. This is a card I'd look for sub $200, for like a 9 or an 8 or something like that. Again, ideally, I just buy a raw grade of myself. But yeah, just think it's a tremendous card.
Great choice. And yeah, I think the Nolan Ryan card is fascinating as well from that year. And yet for you, another pitcher as well.
Yeah, my actual fantasy team is going to be pretty terrible here with Tom Seaver playing third base and whatnot.
Great. So the card my first bench player, it's one that we talked about earlier before we got to this. We talked about last episode. It's just the 2018 Ohtani Heritage card. God, what an image! What a wonderful image. He doesn't always get the best luck on cards, except for Stadium Club. Stadium Club does a wonderful job with him, right? But this one to me is when I think of his rookie card, I'll think of this one. I know he's got the Topps number 700. I know he's got the Bowman Chrome number 1. I'm not talking about value. I'm just talking about appearance. And one card I thought about putting here, actually, I almost put his 2013 BBM.
Oh yeah,
right. The original, the first pack pulled rookie, but I just can't get this image out of my head. And so this is the one that I went with for him.
Beauty. You're not going to hear me complain about a Shohei Ohtani Heritage card. So I have nothing but great things to say about that one.
Yeah. All right. What do you got?
All right. Next bench selection. I'm going back to the gritty 1970s, and I went with the 1978 Topps Reggie Jackson. So Mr. October from 1977, the year before, he had hit 3 home runs in one World Series game, all off the first pitch of the respective pitcher he was facing. So this would be the year after that. And again, it's more of another piece of this trend that I sort of found myself working through as I was making these selections. I just thought this card really sort of exemplifies that vibe, that feeling of Mr. October, even better than the 77 card. The pops on it, again, PSA 10, Pop 24, PSA 9, 374, PSA 8, 1036. This is like a $75 to $125 card in probably an 8. Same logic applies. Again, not in a rush. I'd rather buy a raw grade myself, all that kind of thing. But I think if you look at this card, it's an absolutely just beautiful, beautiful base card. It reminds me of the Seaver a little bit. It's still got that grit and just kind of, rugged sort of look of a 70s card, but you got the beautiful little all-star shield up there in the upper right-hand corner, Yankees, script writing. Is just a fantastic baseball card.
It's a great card, and it's very similar to mine. I picked the 1978 Topps Reggie Jackson for mine. No, truthfully, we had the same one. Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah. How many?
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
How many hundreds of thousands of unique cards, and not more, printed over the years, and we picked the same one.
Gosh,
So
I mean, I'm gonna have to buy this one like tomorrow then too, because yeah, that's too random.
yeah, I know I say this a lot, but it was one of the ones that I sold for the Jackie, right?
Ah,
Yeah, I had it in a beautifully centered 8.
oh really?
Cost like $60, you
Yeah,
know?
that's such a bargain for that card, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of
Yeah,
the ones where I posted it and then some people were commenting saying, the sort of the stereotype, how is that an 8? Not anymore.
yeah.
It was beautiful. So, you know, when I think of the Reggie Coyle, with the way
Mm.
he would swing, and I would be flat on my back for 3 days if I tried to swing this hard and move my back this way.
Maybe
But
this is more of a popular card than I realized. Yeah, it is one that you just look at and you're like, okay, that's a cool card.
yeah,
Like that's really nice.
it's terrific. So this was mine as well. So all
Okay.
right, finish this off. What did you
All
have?
right. Last selection, Mr. Irrelevant for this draft. I went with
I
a
haven't gone yet. I still have one more.
oh,
I do
sorry.
relate. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you give Mr. Irrelevant. Okay. I went with the 2019 Topps Juan Soto horizontal cup card. Same logic to my first selection with the 2021 Otani, just the best version that I could find. So whether that's a true gold or a ball cards in the attic on Instagram, just got the red sapphire. That'd be nice. Or true red. Um, yeah, not in a rush, but I would like to own a copy of this at some point. I just think Juan Soto as a player, obviously 2019 they won the World Series, his breakout. He's been nothing but fantastic ever since, even as a journeyman at such a young age. I think we talked about Juan Soto together before
Mhm.
and that type of thing. The cup typically is, I think on other cards, I think it's in that other, maybe I'm wrong, but I think normally it's in that other corner, like by his bat, but maybe that cup, maybe I'm imagining things. But yeah, it's such a beautiful image. And it's just, if you can find this in the right parallel, the parallel that you connect with, I think it's fantastic. Um, yeah, and that's pretty much all it comes down to for me. He's a great player. He's having a great career, and I think I think this card's far more appealing than any of his rookie cards. And it's an expensive card in low number, but it's still within reason, I think.
Yeah, and I was again just trying to find a horizontal here. I had to scroll down for a bit because
Yeah,
it was pictured vertically on Card Ladder. But this is the VIP party 1 of 1, but the image is the same.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep. Good. All right.
All right, bring us home.
It's a great card. I thought about going with Soto. I thought about doing his 2018 Hands on Hips SP.
Yeah,
Rookie.
that's a nice one.
Yeah, but I think we talked about that last episode, how much I like that one. But instead, I mentioned that Bob Gibson was not done, and so I just went with the traditional 1959 top.
There we go.
Right. Walter Johnson can't do all the work. I had to have a second starting pitcher. So I brought Gibson in there. I picked one that has the vibrant pink color to it. Sometimes it could be a little bit washed out. And so I just decided to go with this one. It's wonderful. I sold it for my Jackie. I sold one that I had. And I've been looking for one ever since, but they're so common that I keep finding myself putting it off. Like, well, I can get that later. I can get it later. And maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. But I wanted to have Gibson represented, so there it is.
That's how I feel about all these vintage cards. I'm putting all of them off all of the time, and maybe I'll never get them. I have no idea, but yeah, that's just the game we play. You can't have everything at the same time. You have to make choices. So I'm with you, man. A 59 is not one of my favorite top sets, but the Gibson 59 is one of my favorite 50s cards.
Yeah,
that pink is awesome.
It's wonderful. So I can't quite fit them all on, but if you can see this now, if anybody is curious, here are our final teams. Right, we've got Jason on the left, I'm on the right, and they're there. And I love Jason's mix of all the pitchers. I had a fun time picking mine as a traditional lineup as well. Made a little bit of a challenge. Oops, George Brady. Let's change that to George Brett there.
Maybe we can do this again like a year from now, and we can see if we come up with the same cards or pick different cards or whatever. And if anybody watches this, feel free to do this exercise yourself and post it, whether it's in the comments of the video or tag us on Instagram. It's really fun, even just to do just on a notepad. Like I just wrote all this stuff down, and I had a blast just scrolling through all the decades, I watched some videos on YouTube and tried to kind of think about what events were most important to me. And yeah, I'm sure Dave and I would love to see anybody else's selections, even if it's just from a few of the decades.
Yeah, please do. Would love to see it. Jason, this was fun.
Yeah, no, this was an absolute blast. I think I am gonna likely own a couple of these cards here at some point in the next year or so. So I'll be excited to share those and reference back to this, and it'll be a cool memory too, because I'll remember, oh yeah, I was doing research for Overthinking Baseball Cards, and that's sort of where that card stemmed from. So that'll be a fun connection point for me.
100%. Everyone, all right. Thank you for jumping into this second episode of Overthinking Baseball Cards. We'll hopefully see you again in about a month. In the meantime, take care. And yeah, if you've got your own lineup, if you've got your own selection of buy era cards, let us know. Until then, take care of yourself.
Yeah, thanks everybody.